Dinosaur Rex, Part 2 of a 3-part series. We, that is, myself, Hempstead Wallopp, my cousin Flavia, our friend and manservant, the amazing Duubadah, were bound for the Dark Continent in search of my Uncle Grenville. Not to mention a fortune in jewels or artifacts or some such to replenish the family coffers, which, except for our recent winnings at Sauricia Downs, were as barren as the caverns of my stomach after several hours dedicated to spewing all manner of vile substances over the rails of this bloody, heaving blimp.
I say, Hempy, we need you desperately in the ballroom. It's ladies' choice, and not a soul under the age of 104 to pick from.
It's the end for me, Flavia. Marry me quickly, and I promise to fling myself overboard. Whose idea was it to take this bloody blimp anyway?
Yours. Boats make you seasick, you said, and do stop calling it a blimp. It's a dirigible, distinguished by its rigid frame as opposed to the soft or semi-rigid support structure of the... Oh, Hempstead, must you?
Ah, Master Hempstead, I've found you at last. I've been all over this ship.
So has he, Duubadah, though in a rather more literal manner.
Muster your courage, young sir. I took the liberty to prepare a mild restorative.
Restorative?
Poison? What's the difference? Hand it over, Duubadah.
Duubadah's potion slithered down my throat like a serpent. A warm serpent. Well traveled, by the taste of it, of the dank mushroomy kingdoms of shadow and rot. But I polished the stuff off and waited patiently for some response. It was not long in coming.
You clumsy oaf! Oh, my apologies, sir. That noise! I thought we'd exploded. Come, look, darling. The eruption seems to have come from our quarry.
I say, Hempy, that was rather a corker. How do you feel?
Well, I feel a new man.
Duubadah, your potion is incredible. Bring on the headhunters. Let the poisoned arrows fly. I'll catch 'em in my teeth. Toss me to the carnosaurs. I'll bash their brains in. Lead me to the raging tigers. Point me to the nearest man-eating plant. Throw me into the churning piranha-infested waters. Tie me to the...
I believe the young sir has adequately communicated his recovery. This being the case, perhaps the time has come to reveal certain facts of our expedition. Facts that I have heretofore withheld in deference to your condition.
Are you hinting at some deep, dark secret concerning the good Uncle Duubadah? If he's involved in anything unsavory,
Nothing like that, I assure you. Still, confronting the issue will require a certain fortitude that... Oh, for God's sake, Duubadah, out with it, and do try to employ the terms treasure, tomb, or riches beyond imagining. Ansalia was quite specific on that point. Treasure, then. Though I hasten to add that it is more of the carnivorous than the numismatic variety. A trifle. We'll exchange it at the Bank of London. I fear the young sir does not take my meaning. Recall that we are discussing your Uncle Grenville. Of course we're talking about Uncle Grenville. Who did you think I thought we were talking about? What he means, Hempy, is that this treasure of Uncle's, rather than lying about casually in the form of precious jewels or coin of the realm, is more likely chasing around the jungle ripping the flesh off small animals. Oh, good God! You mean it's some kind of beast? Some would say, sir, the beast of all beasts. Duubadah proceeded to relate a tale that would have quickened the pulse of an undertaker, so fraught was it with mortal peril. It began outside Bangui, where, commonly enough, Uncle Grenville was throwing a load of shot in the direction of some blighted prey. Blast! Didn't do more than nip him, the duff-hided beggar. More powder in the loads from now on, Duubadah. That one barely lifted me off my feet. Can't be niggardly with the powder if you want to bring down the big ones. Yes, sir. My uncle's blood boiled in his veins as he and Duubadah pursued the wounded beast. This was the sport he was born for. Day wore into evening, and the quest was on the verge of postponement when... Oh, it's no good, Duubadah. Too hazardous, traipsing around the jungle at night. We'll have to make camp. Here's as good a... Shh! We're close, sir. Very, very close. The question is, what are we close to? Quietly now. God bless my soul. I thought it was only a legend. The Tyrannosaur Rex. Tell me I'm imagining things, Duubadah. The apparition is all too real, sir, and I fear we've attracted its attention. By gun, Duubadah, prepare to enter history. If you deem it necessary, sir. Steady on, old boy. Whoa. Run. Didn't even faze him. What a beast. It was as if Uncle Grenville were under a spell, transfixed not only by fear, but by admiration, even reverence for the slathering deathbringer that was upon him. Only at the very last moment did awareness of his plight seem to creep into his consciousness. And by then, of course, it was too late. It was only a glancing blow, delivered by an aging specimen wounded and weak of leg. But it was enough. The beast moved on, leaving my bruised and broken uncle to Duubadah's tender ministration. Mo. Don't try to speak, sir. Save your strength. More powder next time. Duubadah rounded up the stray bearers and carried the battered relative back to Bangui. There he, that is, Uncle Grenville, lapsed into coma, but Duubadah remained ever by his side, confident in the triumph of the true huntsman's spirit over the fragile physical form. After 2 months, Uncle Grenville snapped suddenly to life, commanding, "Duubadah, mount an expedition!" He was released shortly thereafter. The expedition required funding, of course, which precipitated the ill-fated cribbage game with the explorer Hornyorn, the outcome of which you well know. The loss of your contract. So where did you leave the poor man? Along the shores of the Ubangi, as I departed with my new employer. The expression on his face strongly resembled that of a bulldog at a funeral. Perhaps it escaped my notice, Duubadah, but tell me, where, in this harrowing tale, lay the promise of riches? Only implied, sir, in the age of the specimen encountered by myself and your uncle. It was elderly and wounded, seemed, as it lumbered off, resigned to the final fate. Legend has it that somewhere on the dark continent is situated the last resting place of all tyrannicorns. Secluded by mountains, perhaps, probably considered taboo by natives of the area. Modern theory postulates an ancient race that worshipped the tyrannicorns, that protected them, perhaps even offering themselves as living sacrifices to feed the brute's fearsome appetites. With the approach of death, the beast feels a powerful resurgence of ancestral memory, a longing to return to this fondly remembered spot, now populated only by bones and history. The Tyrannicorn Graveyard. Needless to say, the discovery of such a site would be the paleontological prize of the century, not to mention the bonus of a fortune in ivory horns. The Tyrannicorn Graveyard. A fortune in ivory. Is it possible, Hempy? Well, it jolly well better be, if we're to avoid a fate worse than death. Clerking at Harrods? Exactly. I'll not torture my public with a detailed account of our journey by boat to Bangui, last recorded habitat of the elusive Grenvilius Potshoticus. Only one noteworthy aspect presented itself: a boat similar to our own, following at close range, but never hieing alongside, not even when we stopped for the night. At Bangui, we took refuge in an oddly cobbled-together structure dubbed the Embassy Sick Hotel to wallow one last night in the splendors of civilization. Well, that night, I happened to spy Flavia, flitting between shower and bedroom. And I must confess, the sight animated
my bosom. I was struck again by the imperative to impress her with my forthcoming valor. The next several hours were spent replaying Flavia's little dash in my mind, until at last I fell into agitated and fitful slumber. Yes, it was spelled exactly that way, as if cribbed from an amended travel guide. I will forever remember it as the Sick Hotel. We set out the next day, retracing the path of my uncle's previous expedition. You can't be tired already, cousin. We've barely begun. I hardly slept all night. I had the most peculiar dream. I was trapped in this tiny corridor, and I kept running back and forth, back and forth. Seems as though it went on for hours. And several days out, Duubadah discovered a path that could only have been made by the wayward relative. Yes, the crush of your uncle's boot is distinctive. There can be no doubt. Will we catch up with him, then, if we press on? That I can't say. Once he's on a scent, your uncle is capable of an uncommon alacrity. Eh? What he means, Hempy, is that when the bloodlust is on him, our Uncle Grenville can move like a tiger in rut. Oh, I see. Needless to say, Flavia's offhanded reference to hot-blooded beasts wrapped in the throes of passion established the tenor of my thoughts for the rest of the day. By nightfall, I could tolerate the pain no longer. Inflamed by her raw, earthy scent, I confessed my admiration to Flavia in a torrent of poetic froth. So, what I want to say is, that, well, I'm sure you couldn't possibly, but, well, I know what you mean, Hempy, and the sentiment is not entirely unmutual, but it would be rather ridiculous, wouldn't it? I mean, the two of us scrapping by on clerks' wages? Wrapped in a miasma of bitterness and despair, turning inexorably to crime to feed our drug addictions. It's all a bit too penny dreadful for my taste. Well, I really wasn't listening. I was still working on sentiment, not entirely unmutual, and trying to figure if it came around in my favor when... Well, the mad beast erupted from the forest like a dragon with a hot foot, spewing flames and trampling our fragile possessions into junk. This way! My tent! Catch it, Duubadah! Consider it done, miss. My tent. Well, aren't we all glad that's over? Now, how do you suppose the stupid brute got its head caught in a pair of flaming bushes that way? I fear it was no accident, sir. Rather, I strongly suspect the hand of the saboteur lies behind this regrettable incident. Eh? Triceratops don't just go poking their heads into flaming trees, dear heart. Somebody tied those bushes there and lit them. We have an enemy in our midst. An interloper would gall the bloody cheek of the devil. Now who do you suppose?
It appears that our rampaging visitor may have left a clue regarding that very matter. A lapel pin, probably dropped by the saboteur and picked up in the dinosaur's foot.
What incredible luck! Do you recognize it, Duubadah?
Indeed, the Global Order of Explorers, Iceland chapter. My previous employer was never without his.
Horn yarn.
From this point on, we must be forever on guard. I volunteer myself for the first watch.
But what about my tent? I suppose I shall have to double up with someone.
If I might be allowed to offer a suggestion.
A suggestion or an invitation, Hempy?
Well, a bit of both, actually.
You were awfully brave back there, Hempstead. I noticed the way you sheltered me with your own body, throwing yourself between me and the brute. You could have been crushed, reduced to bloody pulp by a single press of the monster's foot. We've had to send you back home in buckets. Just think of it. Hempstead?
Dinosaur Rex concludes next issue.